can't hold a job, no relationships, and mentioned the alcohol abuse, and that's where this journey really began for me. Is that's when at this rehab, 30-day rehab, they put me in with and the other people there with some horses, and it was instant.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Reinforce the Horse. Today we are here with Camron Adibi, and Cam is a horseman, equine relationship coach, and a path therapeutic horse riding instructor. He holds graduate degrees in education and architecture. He offers equine-assisted learning for children and adults of all backgrounds and ages who are facing challenges such as anxiety, trauma, or social difficulties. He also offers sound healing with horses as an invitation for those who want to experience the power of horses. He has a mission to improve horse and human interactions through education and storytelling. In addition, Cam is a sailor with a captain's license. Hello, Cam. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Very well. Thanks for having me. Very appreciate it.
It's wonderful to have you. Really looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah,
Likewise.
This is going to be exciting. Just in your bio, some hot topics have already piqued my interest, and so it's good to have you here. And
to start off, I was really intrigued by so you're a sailor with a captain's license, and I know nothing about sailing. I'm curious if that has, if the knowledge of having that and the experience or whatever has come into play with working with the horses.
I got something to add to that before you jump into
okay.
that. So, because this is funny for Alyssa, because she probably doesn't know this, but it was the time that your mom found out that she was pregnant with you. The day that she found out about that, we actually went sailing for the first and only time I've went sailing, and under the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. And so it's funny that you say that, because you have been sailing before, but
wow, okay.
you were much younger.
Oh my God, the horse's spirit's already coming into this conversation as expected.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, first, thanks to Kim McElroy for introducing me to both of you. I really like your podcast. I've listened to a few episodes. That's a great question. Just as you're reading that background too, by the way, I'll be honest. It's like, what do I call myself? I really do struggle, because I do a lot of different things. I'm I don't know. Sometimes I call myself a creative misfit. That's, I've had so many different fun adventures, but one of them that's been very consistent, longer than horses actually, is sailing and being on the water. So, but they actually they started kind of very same time. So I'm very, very, I've had a very charmed life, and my family has a summer house on Martha's Vineyard Island. And so as a young kid, I started going there for the summers. And as 6 years old, I started taking sailing lessons. Or actually, first my parents bought a little 10-foot sailing dinghy. And I have a story I wrote about that, because I like to write some of my some stuff on. But my parents bought a little 10-foot sailing dinghy and crammed me, my two sisters, my parents, and our dog Rocky into this little 10-foot sailing dinghy, and nobody knew how to sail. And we would go sailing. It was a Tama Bay, so it was a little bit safe. I was like, that was the first real adventures. And then my parents got me signed up for the local yacht club, and I started taking sailing lessons. And then I was in my teens. I started working on boats, and then was I like 19 or 20? I started doing deliveries, taking boats down to. I took two friends of mine delivered a 30-foot catamaran from Martha's Vineyard Island down to Fort Myers, Florida. And so that was quite the adventure. Yeah. So then I started. It just kept on going, and I got eventually through my doing all these deliveries. I got a U.S. Coast Guard captain's license, and I work on boats. I still do. Last summer, I was working on these two really beautiful classic wooden schooners built in the 1930s. When and If, built in 1939, and Malabar X, or Malabar 10, technically, another classic schooner built in 1930 by John Alden. And I was working on, yeah, I know it. Come on. Again, I have a charmed life. I'm like, what do I call myself? So back to the horses. It was on that same island, Martha's Vineyard Island, that I started. I had Chappaquiddick Island, actually, which is a little island connected to Martha's Vineyard. I was a young kid had joined a summer camp and bouncing around on horses in beach shorts and no helmet back in the days when that was not an issue. And then I started working. I worked on horse farm. I worked on a horse farm as a teenager on Martha's Vineyard Island, caring for horses. So they have interwoven.
It's interesting. So horses kind of entered our lives initially, I think, through the horse camps that Alyssa went to. And I think I've told this before on some episode, maybe a number of them. But they had a family day where we would come out and like ride the horses, and just for like a simple trail ride. And all of these horses were like completely shut down and just like head to tail on the trail, and you could do anything and they wouldn't move. And but when we were getting them warmed up, they took us in the round pen, and everybody's horse was like going around the round pen. Everybody was mounted on the horse and they were going around the round pen. Well, the owner, the guy, this old cowboy guy, he was like, "Have you ever ridden a horse before?" And I'm like, "No, but I've flown an airplane," And he kind of chuckled, and he's like, I think he purposely put me on a horse that he knew like was going to be kind of the most difficult. I don't know, but this horse just went right in the middle of the round pen and just stood there. And I'm like, I had no clue what to do. So why I tell that story is I'm curious if you had any sort of idea or thought in working with the horses relating to your sailing. Do you treat a boat similarly in the way that you treat a horse as far as like the controls are concerned, or the movements or the connection with? I don't know about sailing, or I'm definitely not a sailor, but I worked with a lot of them when I was active duty military. So a lot of Navy sailors, and they all had this sort of, much like a pilot would to an aircraft, have like this very connected sense about them to the equipment, to that vessel that they're in. So I'm just curious if any of that kind of bled over, because my response to the guy was like, I've never ridden a horse, but I've flown an airplane that requires a certain amount of finesse about it. So.
Definitely. Well, that's another good question. Yeah, 100%. So as in that bio you read, I have a couple overpriced graduate degrees, but I'm still grateful. So one's in the architecture, engineering side, and the other one's in education. So fundamentally what I am is I offer experiential education. And so both these gifts, they're divine to me. I have equally passion about both, but they are, tools for people to learn how to connect. That's where they both fundamentally share. And these are just energies we get to work with. They're both alive, especially wooden boats. You hear people talk about boats. It's always the feminine, that she, you think about it, because I've been offshore and delivering boats for like, maybe like 3 weeks, longest time I've been offshore. Yeah. So when you're 3 weeks offshore, these boats are, supporting you to keep you alive. And that's why I think, that mythological, about the boats, and same with the horses, I really feel like they're here to keep us alive right now. And that's my experience. That's been my journey. They really, they have access to a spiritual world that I think some of us have forgotten. And boats can provide that same, I'd say, not just boats, but being, on the water, being in this, in that texture, where one of my favorite things to do is to sleep on a boat when we're sailing offshore, because you feel the water just going right underneath you. And you can hear the sound. Sometimes, it's terrifying, but sometimes it's beautiful. To be honest, it's, there's a lot of beautiful sayings, just like the horse world. There's a lot of all these really old kind of, quotes or whatever, people use, and like, the two best days of a boat owner's life is the day they buy the boat and the day they sell the boat.
Right. Yeah.
You better be ready to you better throw some cash out. And that's the same with horses. You better ready to throw some cash.
Really.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. Seriously.
Say the horses make everything better except for your bank account.
Right.
Yeah.
So that goes another. Yeah. Go ahead.
Is that saying that goes, red sky in the morning, sailor take warning, red sky at night, sailor delight? Is that actually true? Or what is that actually talking about?
Yeah, it's really is. It's there. Well, now we have such how to say it. There's such a the weather predictions are so hard now. Things have been shifted so drastically. But yeah, that's a very classical. I mean, that is a truism. I like that because you get me think that like, I heard once you're horseback riding if you're between the horse and the ground. So these are the kind of little things I love. But yes, they are like this old wisdom. I was talking to Kim about this on the podcast with you guys interviewed her as well. It's just this. I think I can't think of. I'm sure, but I know there's probably somewhere. But in the ancient cave art, there's definitely horses. But I bet there's some boats too somewhere. They've been around, since the start of our experience in this world as humans.
It's interesting. You touched on a couple of things, about them being living, and before you said that, you talked about their energy, and then you talked about water being one of the 5 major elements. And, that's really interesting to think about connecting in that way, even when you're on this vessel, whether it be a boat or a horse. And you really have to have a lot of trust and a lot of focus, and you kind of have to let go of ego to some degree, or to a lot of a degree, in order to allow it to work for you. Have you ever been in situations where you're just like totally trusting the horse and the boat, not at the same time, but
yeah.
Have you been in like a stormy situation? Can you tell us about those situations and how you've handled it?
Yeah, very, very good observation. It is all about trust and humility. 100%. It's like I just interviewed this incredible woman on my podcast, The Centaur, Connie Funk, who talked her story. And we were talking about that. It's like you gotta just like let your ego go. Same with boats, and both scenarios. Usually there ends up to being some kind of mishap, and doesn't require a storm at all. But I've been, well, though that early delivery I did, that was a great one with these two friends of mine. We were just kids. We took this 30-foot catamaran from Martha's Vineyard to Florida, as I mentioned. And I think it was like we left Halloween night from Martha's Vineyard, so it was cold and gray, and we were sailing in Long Island Sound, just a stiff breeze at night, and we were towing our inflatable dinghy behind us, and it came loose, and we were like, "Oh my God!" I know it. So it's like these incidences can happen. They happen, and they just like on a horse, and you can get yourself in big trouble. We got lucky there, and we're able to retrieve it and tuck into some harbor. I can't remember. This is again a long time ago, but yeah, I mean, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, something like that. But yeah, I've had a couple accidents on a horse where I have been in the hospital, and I'm not the only one who says this. It's always, I still say it from my answer. It was human error.
I think it's always human error.
Right. It's real. It's the same with boats. When you run aground, usually it's, you think, there was a guy here where I live who, very experienced guy, spent, multiple years getting his boat ready to go down the Caribbean, and went right over the shoal where it's very rocky the day he left the port, and just his boat became salvage. I mean, this is like, these are lessons for us to trust, but also surrender to, that these are vessels for us to learn. They're here to teach us, and that's why I'm always, grateful. I get to learn whenever I'm around the horses and boats, for that matter, too.
You mentioned really cool. Something earlier about the energy, and then you mentioned the feminine energy, and that the boat you liken to feminine energies, which, yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. It's like usually like, oh, there she goes, or, which a lot of times, no matter if it's a male or female horse, we tend to have horses kind of bring out a feminine energy. And so it begged this question in my mind as I heard you say that, like most of the sailor types that I've known, which have been quite a few over the my lifetime, but mostly from a military perspective. Mm-hmm. But most of them carry with them a very masculine sort of, and we even have you have the mouth of a sailor, which is like very aggressive, masculine energy coming out. And so it's interesting that you mentioned the boat being sort of like a feminine energy. And so it's like the captain of that ship, or even the people that are on that vessel, like working on it and making it go a particular direction, or asking it to go a particular direction. It's almost like the two unifying create a balance of masculine and feminine energies to ultimately like travel through the elements. And so whether that's a boat or a horse, something I've never really thought about until right now.
Great observation. I really appreciate that. This is really fun to talk about. Just to backtrack a little bit to what I've been doing. I offer equine assisted learning for kids who are autistic. That's one of the gifts I've been doing. The other one, though, is I've been offering sound healing with horses. So, that's very kind of in the woo-woo space, but it's so much fun. But, how I got involved in all this is still kind of a mystery to me. But part of my background is my dad is from Iran. I'm half Persian. So he's from the Middle East. He came here in the 1950s as just a young kid to study medicine, and then met my mother, who's American. So I'm a mixed up kid, with two very contrasting backgrounds. But my dad's family, my dad and his father they were all military, and very, prominent military men. My grandfather, my dad's father, was in the Persian Cossack Brigade. Which these guys were, they were like Navy SEAL kind of guys. These were not like ordinary military men, and they rode horses. And he had horses, and so I'm bringing this up because here I live in Massachusetts. Here it's this part of the world. It's predominantly women that ride in this area. I'm a very small. I'm a minority as a man in this area, but in other parts of the world, it's the reverse. So that's one thing to counter your observation. And the other one is same with sailing. Yeah, absolutely. You got all these like drunken sailors, and I know them because I used to be one of them. Not any longer, and 11 years now in recovery. But I think of the Polynesians and the other all the other sailing cultures, or the maritime cultures. We just happen to have our maritime culture is kind of modeled after the British, and the British were conquerors and imperialists for many centuries, and we kind of followed that, and that's the influence. Even like most of the language we use from thanks to the British. So it's interesting because I think they're both intertwined, male and female energies in both the horses and in the maritime, but they're very lopsided. So it's very interesting you bring that up. I think that.
Yeah, it's interesting that comes up. I know Dad and I have talked a good amount here on the podcast, and like aside from it, how there's like this broken sense of masculinity in our world. Like I'm a woman, so it's different, but I know Dad's talked a lot about, feeling this lack of sense of self due to what the paradigms and the demographics of a man should be, of how the world portrays a man. And the horses are such good like teachers into this, I think, because so many of them are like, oh, you're a horse, so you're supposed to be ridden, you're supposed to be this, you're supposed to do that, and it takes away their sense of self. It takes away their sense of being. And so I guess the question I'm getting at here, if you're comfortable sharing, of course, is have you experienced a sense of like a lack of sense of self, or not knowing where you were? And if so, have the horses helped you come out of that and being confident in the body that you
exist in? You guys are going right to the core here. I love it. These are the kind of questions I love. Let's not waste time. Let's get to the heart of this. Appreciate this. Yeah, 100%. This is exactly why I continue to do the work with the horses. And just so back to this, just quickly with the sailing, I was offering therapeutic sailing for families. It didn't really work out because it's a hard model to do. But what happened was I hit bottom 11 years ago, and I ended up in a rehab, and I had no clue what it was just an emotional wreck. Lost, pretty much had given up on everything, and most people had given up on me too. And I ended up there, just after moving, I don't know, 20 to 25 times in 20 years, and can't hold a job, no relationships, and mentioned the alcohol abuse, and that's where this journey really began for me. Is that's when at this rehab, 30-day rehab, they put me in with and some the other people there with some horses, and it was instant. It was like I just fell apart. I just I became water, in all meanings of that. And then that just like from there on, it just kind of that's where I've been following that kind of. I got out of there. I started volunteering at a equine therapeutic riding center, and so I was a sidewalker. So just holding the riders on so they don't fall off. A lot of are disabled or physical disabilities. And I just watched these kids having so much fun. Most of them were kids, but there were some adults too. And I was like, man, I got to learn how to ride. I didn't really know how to ride. I knew horses, but I didn't know anything about riding. So I just went right into it and started competing and doing some schooling shows. And I started working in different barns. And I asked this barn to train me as a therapeutic riding instructor, which they did. And I started working, and then I got my master's in education, and I knew that was not for me. Working at a public school, it was just that environment's not me at all. And that's when I really realized, I really wanted to do this individually with this offering with the horses continue to guide me. I get so much every time I get to work with anybody, but I get to witness, and that's the big thing, back to surrender and ego. I am not the instructor. I just kind of facilitate and orchestrate, and then I just get out of the way, and the horses they do the work, I swear. And it's the same with the sound healing that I'm doing now. The sound healing, by the way, that came about because I work with kids as young as 4 years old, but then I started having, I got interest with people that they're in their late 70s who live alone and isolated, lost their partners, and they started coming to me, and they're physically kind of immobile. They don't have a whole lot of physical. I mean, some of them have physical challenges. So it was like, that I was like, why don't we do? I started offering this meditation because I knew about the sound. The sound is, I've been doing that for a while, especially with the kids on the spectrum. Either they're very sound adverse or sound seeking. So I've been using tuning forks with the horses and the kids. And then I started putting this together with the sound bowls. And so I invite people to come sit in a circle with the horses off lead, and I play the sound bowls. And again, just get out of the way. Watch the horses do what they'll do it. They do the work. They know exactly. They can read our energy. They can see where there's deficiencies. They zero in, and sometimes it's not what you think. It's not like they're going to just put their head right on top of your head. Sometimes it's different. It's always different. But if you pay.
And I love that too, that you just and acknowledge that it doesn't always have to be positive. And I know that Kim talked about that with the Oracle deck that she's just
that's part of my daily
as well. Like
that's part of my daily routine now.
There's going to be cards. Oh, that's awesome. Yes, I love that. I've been making a routine of it as well with my horses, and it's been an incredible eye-opening experience actually. But sometimes, and we haven't discovered all the cards yet, but I know she was talking about how some of them may reflect things that you're not expecting, and it may not be what you're wanting. And it holds true to horses in general. They often, they are just this light and love being, but they also mirror and show us what we need to see, even if it's like, I don't want you to be in my space right now. But even if they have that, they are still holding space. At least that's what I've noticed.
Definitely.
Can you tell us a bit about some of the horses that you work with? If you have horses that you work with, a little bit about them and how you came to know them and invite them into the workspace with you.
So I have yet to own a horse, in this journey of mine. I've owned boats, by the way, but I don't really. I'm one of those, less is best, to put it kindly. So I don't own much. So the good news is I've been able to work with a lot of different horses, and so many, that I've gotten to get to learn. So that's helped my education quite a bit too. But so currently I have some great, I call them faculty members. Oh, they're so good. I have this older guy, Hunter, who's a 24-year-old cross thoroughbred. And then these 3 minis I get to work with, Fluff, Pixie, and Romeo. And it started with Hunter. So I just kind of found this, I got introduced to the owner of this beautiful farm where I'm working out of here in Massachusetts, Ipswich, Massachusetts, not far from the sea, by the way. And we do beach rides over here on this part of the world. Yeah, all right. You can only do that. All right, you better come out here. You can only do that from October to April, but boy, it is perfect time right now. It's a trailer over there. The horses love it. You can guess. Why wouldn't they? So Hunter, it was about a year ago. I got introduced to the owner of the farm, and I just asked her, I'm looking for a horse to work with. So I usually find older horses that have been, through not semi-retired or retired. Because most of what I do is unmounted work, because there's so much you can, I think you guys got this. You can do. There's so much more to learn. Even the classical kind of dressage, it all starts on the ground if you really want to really learn. So that's where I start. And then, so I found this older guy, Hunter, who has got this incredible story. He's teaching me so much. This is one of these gifts in your life, right? You get to work a horse like this. He was a school horse for a good percentage of his life. I'd say at least 13, 14 years. Just, going in circles every day, working with young riders, getting kicked, going over jumps, and he was in pain. And I don't know how long, but I got a vet report from a while ago, which is very rare. And it looked like he had issues as young as 9 years old. He was having issues. And so, horses are very stoic. They won't let you know until it's too much. And that's what happened. He started throwing riders, even through the riding instructor. He put the former owner in the hospital. And that's not good, for a horse like that. That usually means, that's the end of the line. And that was what's going to happen with him. He was heading to an auction, and this very sweet woman who owns this farm I work at took him in as a companion horse for her younger horse, or for her horse, excuse me. And he wasn't doing well. He was just kind of out in the field for 5 years, not doing much. And I just kind of like, who's he? I want to know more. So she's like, well, you can work with him. And so I started working with him, and I found out real quickly he was not interested. He was in pain. He was, kind of just got that dull, color in his eye. He didn't, he walked away from most people. He had, of course he would take the carrots, but so we started there, and it's been quite a journey. I was just kind of really just like, hey, what can I do? Service, that's one of the big things I do offer in my sessions with my work. Is like, how can we be of service to these animals that are here for us? I just got a grant to work with some teenagers at risk. And that's one of the things. Yeah, it's been really cool. Get to know that. Just started that program. So yeah, there's so much to,
so
and
cool.
I'm not the only one doing this. So it's just like, why aren't more people doing this? So I don't know. It's
It's like the line of work that I want to get into. Like, it fascinates me. And I
What do you mean line of work that you want to get into? You're already well into it. At your age, I
guess I'm kind of starting it. Like I'm in college.
I'm going to remind you of that.
I just
Yeah,
this kind of
I'm envious.
yeah.
You're at your age. You're getting to start this career. I started this much later, but it's God's time. It's not our
Thank
time.
you.
When we're ready, we're ready.
For sure. Can you tell us more about the grant
Yeah.
opportunity? That sounds interesting. Are you able to share it? Is it like a state or federal or?
It's a state grant, and I said I'm alone, but I'm not. I have so many people. Since I did hit bottom 11 years ago, I've had so many people help me. I've got such great people around me who are supporting me, and just give me whatever it takes. But so thanks to a friend of mine, he saw what I was doing, and he said, "Cam, this would be great for some of the people I work with." So he, I'm not, because I am not a not-for-profit. I've kind of resisted that. I don't know. It's my own stubbornness, but I'm trying not to get into that space. So anyway, this grant was, I was, for somebody like me, was totally doable. And so it's just a small. We're doing started. It's through the sheriff's department in Essex County. We're just starting a 8-week program, and so teenagers, high school students mostly, and basically, it's always back to how can this be not only fun and safe, but how can we work on like really learning how to communicate. Well, first of all, the horse welfare and care and maintenance of horses, but then how can we really learn how to communicate and connect? And that's fundamentally what I'm doing. I think that's what the horses are really so good at, is offering connection for people that are just completely disconnected and giving up. But so, yeah, how to really learn how they communicate and how we can connect with them through different, exercises, and then also learn how some basic skills and exercises that we get to do together. So it's all interactive, experiential learning, equine assisted learning, with the goal that they get to really explore in a safe place what they need to learn, not what I need to teach them. And that's why I wasn't a good public school teacher, right? So, here's the curriculum. You're going to learn this today, blah, 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 blah. The only reason, by the way, I survived at public school teaching was I was a science engineering teacher. And so
that sounds
I was
fun.
the only one who's like, let's do projects. And so, of course, it was a total mess because the kids are like,
is that, just out of curiosity, is that like the engineering aspect of it, did your architecture experience come into that play?
Yeah, definitely.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, that was my previous life. I was doing engineering consulting in New York City. I know. How did I pull that off? I don't know. Because if I tried that today, I'd be like, oh man, that'd last one day. But we learn to adapt. That's another thing horses teach us. Even Hunter, who was in just massive pain, he was just trying. He was trying so hard to adapt to that situation. Now that I gave him this new job, he is just, Cam, let's go. He meets me and he's like, he's charging. It's just so fun to watch him. He's a sentinel being. I mean, he's really the leader and the am I saying it right? Sentinel, not sentient, but he's the leader. So he lets all the horses approach him. He never has anything bad to say.
Aww.
And he's on the same with people. He's really like, he welcomes them.
He reminds me of our Cody. Sounds a lot like, and Cody's a lot younger, but he's had a rough life, and it was a meeting. Like, I think everybody listening to this podcast would have some sense of understanding of like these gentle beasts, these gentle giants enter our lives at like the perfect time if we're open and receptive to it. And and just, I mean, thanks for sharing about Hunter, because that's like, I think that's one of the biggest driving forces of the podcast here, I think, is to kind of bring that forward and to share that, because I don't think a lot of people really fully understand the life cycle of a modern day horse. And I say modern day, it's not like I know anything much about history. So I just have a feeling that horses were treated differently in history. And I don't have any backing like, I'm not a history buff. I enjoy it, but I'm not good at retaining and regurgitating information. But I feel like the life cycle of a horse these days is all about sport and competition and what they can do for human beings. So I really genuinely appreciate the fact that you're looking at the horse and like, how can I be of service to you and your species, and not just trying to siphon something out of them.
It is definitely a different shift in perception. But I've been asking like Kim and this woman I just interviewed, Connie, what the future of the horse is. I don't know what's going on, but Marianne Simons, I have to mention her, by the way. She is like I'm so blessed. I get to talk to her as well. Author from A Horse by Nature. That book is like that's a textbook. I use that frequently, but all of them are saying, they've been doing this much longer than I have. Something's happening. There's such a much deeper interest going on. Look at what happened to the Olympics. There was such an outcry, but that's been going on, it's been going on now. It's all of a sudden there's not as much of, they can't get away with it as much, or they there's more focus on the horse welfare. But so there's something happening with the consciousness, because people are just so interested in this right now. So Alyssa, your time is good.
It kind of reminds me of technology and how like back in the 90s, it was like, I remember, well, even later, like early 2000s, writing a paper on, I was in college at the time, and writing a paper on voice over IP technology. And it was just like, that technology was there, but it wasn't like very prevalent. And then it's like all of a sudden people were talking about like the possibility of actually having like meetings like we're having right now. Like we're seeing each other in real time, different ends of the planet. And it works pretty darn good, And it seems like that's what's going on in a lot of ways, like across our whole system of life. Like, and especially when it comes to the horses, it's like there's this movement, and it feels like there's just going to be a point in time where the light bulb illuminates, at a macro scale. At least that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah. Agreed. I think so. There's something happening. I don't know what, I can't describe it. It seems like there is more interest in like this kind of stuff, like the Council of Horses.
Yeah.
There's just more, It's really fascinating. So it's a good time to be working, but it is still, there's still a lot of, resistance, which is expected in anything. We're not quick to change. Nobody, that's one of the.
So I think that's like what we're teetering on talking about is like the spirituality of our existence and of the horse. And I think we all can agree that we could spend our entire lifetime and more, perhaps we've spent lifetimes in the past, contemplating our existence and the spiritual nature of things. But you had asked in our, like our questionnaire that we send out, or the short thing, you had asked us about our spiritual practice. So maybe we can key into that. Like, you're asking that question of us. So I'm guessing you have found some sort of spiritual sense, and I'm curious if that has anything to do with the horses. Were they a catalyst for you to find a particular spiritual practice or religion even?
Yeah, definitely. I'm one of those types that's educational variety. I take a little of everything, whatever, this. So I don't follow one practice. So I think that is kind of, I think it's kind of the purpose in my mind, even if you do subscribe to a religion, it's how do you find yourself in that religion? But so anyway, I'm not a religious person, but definitely I've had a lot of great kind of spiritual experiences, and not so good too, by the way. But it's just to keep moving forward and keep practicing. So yeah, basically my rituals. I start my day with meditation and prayer, and there might be something with the horses, including the Council of Horses. But and then I'm not great at any of this, but I do try to bring that energy into when I go to the barn, and I'm always trying to invite, just take that ego out just for a second, because it's so hard. It's not easy. And, invite the horses in to, hear what they have to say. And who was I talking about? To misspell Mr. Oh, Connie, I just had the interview with. We were talking about Mr. Ed. Mr. Ed, oh my God. Alyssa, do you know about this TV show?
I have only heard about it from Dad.
Okay.
That's it.
Get on YouTube, look at that episode, because she was actually talking about is the spiritual part of Mr. Ed. I still think there is so much to explore in laughter and humor. So I do try to laugh. I really do, because it's such a great release. And
weren't we just talking about that the other day? Alyssa was like,
yeah.
So we take ourselves way too seriously.
Yes.
And horses are really good reminders of that too. But hey, maybe the three of us can come up with a new version of Mr. Ed, the spiritual version.
The spiritual version.
That's hilarious.
But the horses don't, literally talk to us, but I'm guessing you guys get the same thing. They communicate.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And
totally.
The classic one is Cam, you're a horse whisperer. Like, oh, stop, get that out of there. But I do listen. A lot of people use that term. I'm a horse listener, and I just listen to what they have to say. And so Romeo, he's the young mini that I work with. Those three were bought. Romeo, Fluff, and Pixie were bought in an auction. So, once you're at an auction, your next step is the slaughterhouse. And that's hugely traumatic. And Jason, you're talking about, in this current culture, the average horse on average is sold 4 to 5 times in their lifetimes. That is huge trauma, because they are all about their friendship model. They develop friends, not just horses, but human friends. And to have that removed is, that's very. So they know grief too, right? We know this, and it's been documented anyway. So Romeo, he's a 10-year-old mini who's has got a lot. He can do a lot. He is a riding horse too, for younger people, light people, obviously. But he has got this incredible intelligence, and I've been taking him to go to Hunter and Hunter's buddy Galloway's paddock. And so he knows the routine, and he literally, when he sees me come, he starts calling for me. Romeo, call for me. Aww. And then when I take him down to Hunter's paddock, he just runs. He just goes. He just runs like a little kid. And the two of them go over, and I know it. It's like, it's just, it gives me chills, right? It's like all I was doing was like Romeo. I was like, I could see he was not, he's just a little bored and wanted something, because he's so smart. He needs something else. And I was just like, let's try this. So I think that's a big one. Is like, it's so hard to like what let go of something you've already developed. This is definitely the way it's going to work. This is it. I'm going to do this, and nothing else is going to change. And like, nope, that's out the door.
It's interesting because this life is so dynamic. Like, there's so much changes. Like, I think change has got to be one of the only constants in life, and it's ever changing, and it's really fascinating. I love that you've mentioned a couple of times the play and laughter and just having fun. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and the creativity aspect of, I guess, the work that you do, and especially how you are able to see shifts in either the horses and your clients as they're experiencing this like play and laughter in a safe setting?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it is my gift. That's I just won't grow up. So this is where I've at, for better or worse, I haven't grown up, and but that's why I think
Alyssa's laughing because why, Alyssa?
your Jason won't grow up. Let me guess.
It's the same thing.
Because I'm 43 years old, going on 13?
Awesome.
Those days.
Yes.
Yep.
It's so fundamental. I think it's so important. I am working on getting more responsible. I'm running a business, first of all, and I have to be very responsible for that. But yeah, I mean, this is so many greats have talked about that. One of my I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Mr. Rogers, this is how we learn. We learn through play. And horses, this is how they communicate. They communicate through play. And you want to make a horse happy, learn how to play, in a safe way. But, what was I going to say? Yeah. I just had a new student, 6-year-old, young boy who is nonverbal, and the first time we met, and I invited him to come meet Romeo. Again, Romeo is just way off the charts with what he can do, and I've been teaching Romeo. You're gonna laugh because I'm doing the sound bowls, right? So I have these big crystal sound bowls, and I do this with Romeo and Hunter and a couple other horses, and Romeo wants to play the sound bowls.
Oh, I love that.
He puts the mallet in his mouth and he swings it. And so I was like, all right, Romeo. Yeah. And he could break these. And again, people would call me crazy to let them even touch these bowls because they're expensive. But I'm like, no, this is what I want to do. So I bought Romeo a drum set, a little like kiddie drum set with the chimes and so he can, use his mouth a little bit more. And I gave it to this young boy who I had to, and the boy just loved it. And Romeo was just studying him. He was studying him, and we'd run. And I gave the boy, so this is part about the movement but following what they were interested in. And the boy would run. So we had 3 different hula hoops, and I put them in different parts of the indoor arena. And so we would have to run to each of the hula hoops, and then he would have to put the drum set down and play it, and then move to the next one. And Romeo would follow on lead line, but Romeo would follow us. We'd run together, and it's just that again, what's going on there? There's a lot.
There's so much going on there,
right?
And it's
for a nonverbal boy.
It's beautiful to just have that, like, awaken a sense of like fun and play in a different way. And I feel like, have you heard of the documentary called Horse Boy?
Yes. Yeah. And there's a book as well. Yes. I think you had a guest on,
Rupert Isaacson.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that really opened up a lot of like, the power, the healing power of horses, and the amount of communication that they have, especially to a nonverbal child. Like, it's like the the horses communicate to them in a way that humans have struggle with reaching them in some ways. And so I think it's really cool that you've like you can experience that and experience the fun and the joy in the child as they're playing with the horse.
Yes, definitely. There's something very powerful about sound and vibration, and I've been following this for a while. It's one of the other things I did. I sing in a choir. I brought my choir to sing to the horses. The horses loved it because by watching Hunter, I found that he loves music. He's requesting different songs sometimes, and when I play music for him, so I've been doing so. But the thing and then the sound healing is just opening up this another door and just it's going to another plane or another dimension I can't even explain. Hunter will literally he'll stand right over the singing bowls and just go into a deep state. He puts his mouth right by my ear and just kind of snoring a little bit, breathing on my ear as I'm playing the bowls. But so one of the things I'm doing is I'm doing these group sound healings where people come and we can join in a circle, but I'm also doing individualized recordings for people because there's so many people that are, live alone and mobile, can't travel. So I'm doing that now as well. That was from the older people I started working with.
The sound healing is so amazing. And I came across it years ago. I had another podcast, I don't know, it was in 2015 timeframe. And I didn't run it very long, but one of my first guests was a sound healer, and she stumbled on it. Her name's Trisha Debney. She's pretty well known in Arizona, at least, if not further out. But she ultimately healed from some chronic illness due to these, and she became a musician because of it. And then, so that was my debut into it. And then I've listened to quite a few of them. I think there's one called Healing Vibrations on YouTube. It's a channel that I followed quite a bit. And everything from headaches to nausea to just sleep. And we are sound, we are vibration.
100%. Yeah.
And part of our journey that we've mentioned here is has been yoga and not just the exercise and stretching and stuff. Well, that's a component. I think a lot of people, I like to clarify that I don't just mean that when I say yoga. But yoga has a lot to do with sound. Mm-hmm. Yoga in and of itself means union, so with all that is, so sound is a big component of that. And I wound up stumbling on Sanskrit chanting, and Sanskrit's an ancient language that dates back thousands of years. And we wound up playing a lot of that for our herd of horses, and just being out and around them, or if they had that appointment coming up or whatever, we'd play some. And it's similar, you're talking about, they just latch onto those vibrations. And I guess you would have to do some sort of experiment, if you bring out some heavy metal or something like that. It's gonna, nothing wrong with heavy metal.
No,
well, I know that
I like it.
Willow's not a fan of heavy metal. Willow likes very, very gentle stuff, and she, if there is singing involved or chanting, she seems to prefer a female voice, which is interesting. Just the way that she. And this is my, I would consider Willow my heart horse. Talked a lot about her on the podcast, but she, she has a different energy toward whether it's soft or harder kind of level music. And it's interesting to see how she reacts. She also loves it when I when I used to have a guitar and I'd bring it out to her to play with it. She's just really curious. And I think naturally horses, really curious.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yep. Yeah, that's cool. I'd love to have a yoga. I know they do that too, but back to the sound healing. It's one thing I'm still diving into this pretty deep here and finding new things. But what I'm offering this is because it's not just the sound bowls that I'm offering, but it's with the horses. And the horses, like you said, Jason, 100%, we are vibrating, and so are they. And so that classic heart math study they did, where with the heart of the horse. So it's just tuning into their frequencies, and then having that. So it's to me, it's like a loudspeaker of vibration in a very healing way. So that's why I'm offering. So it's like adding another layer to the sound bowls, and then I'm videoing it so that people could see this, and it's individualized for that person. Whoever, I've done a few now. It's been really fun to do this.
Yeah, and for our really listeners, you mentioned the heart math study, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's if you're mentioning the one that talks about their heart rate variability and ours, and how the heart rate variabilities will synchronize.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, because I've heard that even before I learned about heart math, I would hear just people talk about, like, if you're on a horse, then your heartbeat will match theirs and whatnot. And I always like to clarify when this topic comes up that it's not actually the heartbeat, it's the heart rate variability. So it's it's the rhythm of the heartbeat. Mm-hmm. That's how I understand it anyway.
The frequency I think is also how they explain it.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm certainly not an expert on it.
No, if we had the same, I think we would die if we had the same heart, because theirs is so much slower than ours.
So much slower.
So maybe that's just a sciencey sort of nerdy.
Yeah, no, that's important. Frequency
into that, but because to me, frequency comes back to the idea of vibration, and the vibration, whether it's the age-old sound, like there are certain, like, of course, in like yoga sciences that talk about that being the underlying sound of all that is, and so when we talk about the frequency of the heart, well, the heart is just playing its own music until it doesn't anymore. And then, so when we approach things like that, and with the horses in particular, then we open up a whole paradigm, a whole new dimension of being. And sounds like what you're getting into and how you're working with people is like, you're actually helping people heal that, because I am. What did I do with that? Oh, here it is. I gotta be careful, right? Because I'm not a teacher or not an instructor. I'm not a healer, but I'm facilitating. Let me say that too. Like, I think the term healer is often overused and misused in our culture.
It's more about the ego, right? Yeah.
I think all a true healer does is steps out of the way and acts as a conduit, just as you would run electrical wire through the conduit tubing. Yep. And makes those connections with the so-called patient, if you will. I know, terming a patient, you got to be licensed to do that. Right, but totally. We're not talking patients. We're talking people that are just opening themselves and being open and receptive.
This is the tough part, because how do you market yourself? I'm a facilitator. What's that? What are you talking about? But anyway, I got to show you this, because that's
a tuning fork, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you're gonna have the video or not. I can't remember. But this is a tuning fork. I use these on the horses and kids. This is a weighted tuning fork. So it's basically, for listeners, it's a metal, alloy metal. It's based like a long U shape, and there's a stem. But this is a little different. I have a crystal on the end of it, on the point, so I can actually touch, and then it's weighted. So it has these two big discs at the end, so it will continue to vibrate after I touch it on the body. So I use these actually this is part of Hunter's recovery, by the way. I use these because his back was I tried riding him, and I could feel his pain. This is early when I first met him. So I use this as
just like Cody.
It's
So this is, it sounds a lot.
You don't need the sound bowls. I just went back to the original topic about the boats and horses. Like, these are just vessels. It's all about intention, and that's what the sound healings really are about. Is what your intention is, and I just kind of open it up with the horses and the sound bowls, and it's the same thing with the.
Yeah, that's incredibly interesting. And Alyssa right now, she's a student at Maharishi
she mentioned that
University.
Yeah.
So, and I took a few courses with them. And so Maharishi had done, the university and their various departments, they've done studies on just the sound resonance of the chanting.
Mm-hmm.
And I know like other gurus like Sadhguru and stuff has done his independent studies as well, or his teams have. And the incredible amount, and I'm sitting here like as a success story of this sort of thing, like sound in and of itself has been a healing modality for myself. And there's been nothing, like I haven't gone out and purchased like any incredible instruments other than a decent guitar, but
nice. Awesome.
But it's just been sitting and being silent and then uttering some age-old sounds, and the body responds by opening itself up to the healing processes.
That's beautiful.
Psychologically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, all of the above, all of the LY words. And I think that can, and you're seeing that like in working with the horses as well. It's interesting too, because I had went on a pilgrimage in the Himalayas, and they use a lot of like pack mules to get people from point A to point B, and they abuse them. And I still have this thought in my mind, like a place like India where it's and you're going to a spiritual mecca of the world. And what would it be like if we can use our voices instead of yelling at the mules to actually like ask them to be with and escort and even carry us to these locations? What more of a magical opportunity that would be for the equines and the humans alike. So sound is a big thing for me. Sorry, kind of get on that segment.
No, just ask exactly. I mean, I talked to Marianne Simons, who's been doing this for 30 plus years and worked with the wild herds out west and all sorts of just amazing stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of horses. Like there's a lot of horses in competition that love that job, but can you ask? Is that, most people don't bother. Why would you ask a horse? They don't have any intelligence. Not true.
Not true.
Right. We know that there's a high level intelligence, especially emotional intelligence. Again, that's what I bring all these people to, because most of them can't even identify what they're feeling.
What would you say to the naysayer who's like, well, you're that big word anthropomorphizing,
Yeah.
What would your response to that be?
Well, they're definitely, they're different. We are not horses, and they are not humans, but there are some things, like, for example, there's no question that they have, whether they have a friendship based model in their societies, that you see it, right? So they really are about those bonds. And so then they also have, we know they have emotions. It's actually, there's a great study. It's in Marianne's book. The scientists at least identified 17 different emotions horses have. There's more, but yeah, that's been identified, and we know they grieve. We've seen this, like when they lose a partner, you'll see that. And so they carry a lot of intelligence, but the thing that really is going to be, I think I mentioned it real briefly, is that they have access to the spirit world, and that's again what's, I think, Kim and Sandra. I'm going to interview Sandra next week too, by the way. Her
cool.
co-author, because Sandra is even more. I have more questions for her because she's doing a lot of the work I want to be doing. But so I mean, there's no question they have access. So these spirit, I carry all the horses that I've met with me. I think about them actually quite often. Like one, I had this great little pony I got to work with. So again, my models, I don't own any horses, and so I was leasing this horse for my work at another farm I used to go to. And he also was having problems, and I did a lot of work with him, and he started to get a lot better. And so what did the owner do? Sell the horse. And she gave me she kind of made an offer to me, but not really. She wanted top dollar, and she got top dollar. And how do you explain that? I still like so I had some of my kids write cards because I had to tell them, hey, this horse is no longer going to be here. Yeah, so even the kids had to, go through that, and Tolly, the horse, had to go through this. So, but yeah, so we know that they have that ability because they have those strong bonds. If they lose those bonds, there's going to be an emotion. Before I wanted to, if I can, just real quick, and I just play because you mentioned ohm.
Yes, please.
This is the tuning fork I have. This is a weighted tuning fork I use. It is a ohm frequency. This is what Biosonics is where I buy it, and it's an ohm frequency, and it's 136.1 hertz. This is from Dr. John Ballou, his company. But here, I'll play it. Let's see if I get it by the microphone.
Yeah, and I think like 2 years ago, like had somebody played that, or maybe it have to be a little longer because that was after my interaction with Trisha and sound healing, but I was still skeptical at that time. But now, I mean, just hearing that sound, it just is like an immediate, like, calming sensation throughout my body and my mind and my soul. And I think that if I had to say like what a horse does, they vibrate that frequency. And I don't have any like scientific proof of that. Like, I don't know if that can be measured. Who cares?
Yeah,
they're
right.
constantly grounded to the earth, like when they're standing out in their pasture or whatever, provided there's not some rubber mat or something below them. But they exude that frequency in everything that they do, and
when they're in a good state, they're just like us. They get dysregulated and get flown off the charts. So just like, that's where I don't separate. They get in trouble and need to find balance.
Oh, that's an excellent point.
And then
just like our nervous systems are all out of whack, and we don't even know it.
100%.
You know, and then we get shut down and we move through life. And like, so you mentioned like alcohol, then we resort to these exogenous substances to come in and try to bring some sort of like balance or some sort of disconnection, even because we're so in such a state of turmoil within our nervous system, the sky's the limit on the things that we could bring into or about our bodies to try to alter that feeling. Whether it's yoga or I think any of the religions, they're all saying the same thing. It's just about getting back to the essence of who you are and like have a playful mindset. That's in the Christian Bible. It's all across the, like, remain playful, I think was, it's been talked about all the time. Something I've only been able to do like the past couple of years of my life, inching closer and closer to that. And now, like, on a day-to-day basis, I think I reside in.
I think you've achieved that one, Dad. I think you.
Nice.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Like, your mom would be like, "You're the most serious, annoying person on the face of this planet." She's my ex-wife.
Yeah, no, it's.
But
you've also
there's
had
some validity to those things, because I think at those times in my life that those were true statements, And so, yeah,
I think the horses, Cody in particular, like, you two have gone on this journey, and it's like, Cam, you mentioned Hunter's story. Like, the similarities between Hunter's story and Cody's story is very similar, and it sounds like, I know through Dad's journey with Cody, they went through an immense process of healing and connecting and listening, and just like, it's communication, not control. And it sounds like you and Hunter went through a very similar, like, healing. You mentioned you're still learning from him, and he's your friend, he's your companion, and it's just it's so incredible. It really is.
Truly, yes. Cody and Willow sound awesome too. How many horses do you guys have total?
They're great. We have two.
Two, okay.
Two. I like to say we have 2.5, because we had a Mustang mare who is now living on a sanctuary with. She's living her best life. She's
give a shout out to Jordana on the wall too.
Yes.
At Choice Tribe. That's another story for. We need to get Jordana back on the show and talk about that.
We do.
I'd like to hear that. I'd definitely like to hear that story,
because that was very synchronistic. Like, we couldn't make it up. Like, just the way everything went down with Grace ultimately finding her home with her.
Yeah.
It's like,
that's a conversation for another time for sure. That's a deep one. But yeah, no, it's all good stuff. This has been an incredible conversation with you, and it's an honor to be able to, get to know you a bit more and listen about your story. And it sounds like you have so much that you're doing. You really are an inspiration in many ways.
Thank you.
Sure.
This has been a great I really got a lot out of this conversation. This is my first time I've ever been interviewed like this too. So thank you for letting me do this.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
As we close up, we like to ask, our guests most times, sometimes we forget, but how do you like to reinforce your horse?
Oh, good question. Yeah. I think fundamentally with play. It's play. So one of my rituals with Hunter, and this is his therapy. We go. I have a beautiful. Thanks to this farm, the owner of this farm, I get to I can use the indoor arena, and it's one of those beautiful dressage. The nice soft footing. Lit lights, everything. So we go in there and play. And what we do, and we actually go Hunter or Romeo, actually sometimes even all three minis, and Hunter and I will go in there together because Hunter loves the minis. And Hunter's routine is to go in there and he will roll. He'll roll on the ground. and he'll go over back and forth twice, two or three times. This is a 24-year-old horse, so this is important.
That's kidding.
Right? And then he gets up and he just goes like that. You know?
Great impression, by the way.
I tried it. So I do that after I'll say good job, Hunter, then I'll do that myself. Because that's the the Chinese like qigong. Yeah. That's what they do. You shake your body to get your energy. Anyway, and then we'll start doing some running around, and I'll do some Liberty work with him and the minis, and I'll try to get them all to walk together. And we're still working on that, but Romeo and Hunter have got that figured out. We do Liberty and just do circles or just walk around. It's so cool. So yeah, that's it's an easy practice to do. By the way, if you had a nice dirt paddock, just letting them allow to roll. And
they love that.
Right?
I've noticed that with, I think, all of the horses here. And because it's not just us, just Willow and Cody here on the property. And it's like they go out into the common area during the day. And almost everyone at some point after they get let out of their rooms, they'll go and like find a place to roll. And it's like everyone's just so happy about it. They're all like,
So one of the things I think we can do as humans is offer that to them.
I love that.
Totally agree.
Give them that time and like, hey, I'm gonna hold this space for you so you can do it.
That's amazing.
It's beautiful.
I love it. So
awesome,
Kim,
you guys.
Where can people find you? Just how would you like them to get in touch with you?
Thanks so much.
Give a shout out to your website or whatnot.
Because I got a very difficult name to spell, but my full name, Camron Adibi, so it's Camron, and then my last name, Adibi, Adibi.com. But you can also find me on Equine Therapy Guy on Instagram, and then I have a Facebook page. I always have a Substack. I have a Substack newsletter. I try to write weekly about.
And are you doing anything like remote consultations with people or the sound?
So thanks for bringing that up. I do in-person equine assisted learning, but then I do this remote individualized sound healings for people. So to just contact me and you make a request.
Great. And so for our listeners, we'll have all the links out on the show notes page for this episode at reinforcethehorse.com. And you could find all of that there.
Yes.
Well, Cam, it's been incredible talking with you and just sharing space with you today. It's been really fun.
Hey, likewise. I really appreciate it. Honor you both. And I do hope to stay in touch and hear about your journeys. It sounds really incredible. Maybe
Thank you.
Let's be in touch.
Keep in touch.
All right. Take care.